So here's the reality of the people that you think are overweight and it's a life of excess. In all reality, those people are very deficient. They're nutritionally deficient because the foods they are eating, like sugar, depletes the body of vitamin D. These foods, they take health away, and that's a real danger. You know, yes, it makes them overweight. It's culturally frowned upon to be overweight, but the real danger is what it does to your health and how it takes away health. That's where it is. So in thinking about this, you know, the lungs and how toxins enter the body, if I can get you to start thinking this way a little bit more, I think this class is a success. Considering that most of the toxins coming into our bodies are coming from the digestive tract. There's no line of defense there. They're in, and you know what? Here's the thing. The worst thing is we know, like we see smoke, we stay away from smoke. We see a cookie, we see, you know, a donut that's filled with trans fats, clog arteries. Not that fats, these trans fats are terrible. We see sugar that really is the culprit in high cholesterol. We need to stay away from those things like we're staying away from smoke. So that's what I'd like for you to start thinking about, especially when you're doing when you're shopping for groceries and things like that. And then skin penetration. This is a thing that's the skin is we never really think about this. You know, it's like, oh, I'm just putting it on my skin. It's not really affecting me. But if you look at what's in some of these topical, like anything topical, it's really interesting. Like mineral oil is terrible. That's something you want to stay away from, especially with children. And I can't go into a lot of details, but this is something you can look up and see the safety concerns of mineral oil. Another thing is aluminum in our deodorants. It's another thing that a lot of people, you know, try to stay away from because of that. Ladies, when you get your hair colored, there's a reason why they ask if you're pregnant. You know, it's not as benign as we think it is. If it could affect the fetus, it's probably not hurting you to where you develop a symptom, but it is a challenge for your body to deal with. So there's a lot of things that we were exposed to, even topically, that's something we have to consider when we're thinking about how our bodies are dealing with toxins. So up to this point, you might think, well, you know, a lot of what you're saying is subjective. Well, let's look at something a little more objective. This is according to the Center for Disease Control, 1988, overweight adults in the U.S. The red stands for more than 35% of the population being overweight. Okay? Red. The year 1996. Remember, we started in the 80s. That is low fat. Remember, everyone was on the low fat kick. You didn't eat fat because fat caused you to have atherosclerosis. It caused high cholesterol. All this stuff we were told. Well, it didn't work. 1996, and then in the year 2000, here's a cardiologist comes on the scene from New York, and he writes a book. I think it was called The Diet Revolution. Anyone know who that is? Atkins, that's right, Dr. Atkins. And he hits the scene hard, and everyone stops. You know, everyone interested in weight loss starts eliminating carbs. So everything is like low carb, low carb. But the problem, it got only worse. I don't have the next slide, but I have found it in another presentation. It's of the year 2007. The country looks the same, all in the red, but now red stands for more than 55% of the population is overweight. Here's the reason why. If you focus on a macronutrient, you say, oh, fats are the problem. It doesn't work. You focus on carbs. Carbs are the problem. It doesn't work. You focus on protein. You just got to eat protein all day. That doesn't work. We have every diet under the sun. What is it? Taco Bell drive-through diet. We have the South Beach diet. You have Atkins low carb or ketogenic diet. I mean, you know, bottom line is, here's why it fails. People are not moving on a conviction that has really changed their lifestyle decisions. They're moving on the, I can say no, I can say no for now, I can say no. There's not a real conviction as to even why they're saying no to that food. When you establish something like this and you educate people on what they're really putting in their mouth. And you teach them how to eat. You teach them how to establish new habits. That's when we see weight loss, and their weight will fall exactly where it needs to fall. With this program, interesting thing, you will lose more weight after the program than during the program. The program is 3 weeks long. After the program, you lose more weight. Why? Lifestyle changes. That's where it's at. That's what guarantees a success. Whereas most people are asking, and the common question, if you already have it, I'm going to answer it, what happens after the program? What happens after the program is that you lose more weight. And why do people ask that question? Because we all know, you see someone lose 15 and gain 30. That's what happens. It's that rebound. You know, these people, and I've seen, and some people have done this the wrong way. They didn't get it. So come midnight of the 21st day, they got the Diet Coke in one hand, the pizza in the other, and strike midnight, they're tearing it up. You know, and they didn't learn a thing. That's why it's a 21-day program, because the idea is to establish new habits, to teach you really how to eat, so you never fall back into that. You know, just like we learn how to take care of ourselves and groom ourselves, you know, eating is just a continuation of that. Unfortunately, it's not accepted. We got the Super Bowl coming up. What do you see? I've never seen so many. It's hard. So many commercials for this and that. I was watching Rachel the other day, the cook, you know. Yeah, and she had these amazing dips she was making, and I'm just thinking, like, I'm on the treadmill doing my cardio, and I'm thinking, this is hard because everything pushes you in that direction. But what's cool though is being in this society though and learning, being, if you will, standing apart and learning really how to prepare meals so that they give health. And you'll find that when you do that, if you put that as a #1 concern in your diet, you'll realize that not only do you lose weight, you're more satisfied, you start enjoying food again, truly enjoying food. So that's my little piece on the whole overweight thing. This hits home. I have a 5-year-old, she's playing in the other room there, and I can tell you that I consider this child abuse. When you see a child like that, overweight child, I was that child. And it's not by any fault of my parents, they just did, you know, what they thought, you know, was best. But that's the problem. We don't know. So when kids do anything right, what do we reward them with? What? Sugar. My daughter's already trained. Daddy, so if I do this, so I get a treat. You know, but she understands. Like, I've tried to teach her. So she goes around telling people when they offer her like chocolate, no, I'm allergic to sugar. That's how she views it. I didn't tell her that, but she sees it as that, and so she's learning to stay away. You might say, well, that's too much. Well, the way I see it, I'm keeping her away from things that hurt her body just as much as I keep her away from pornography or anything that's bad. Later, if she makes a decision to go that way, at least I know I established the right roots. So, you know, this is a lot of motivation for me because I see this happening more and more. Type 2 diabetes is becoming more common in the United States. From 1980 to today, the number of Americans with diabetes more than tripled. And where we see it the most? In children. And that's a shame. That's a shame. Children that are on high blood pressure medication already on insulin, they're diabetic. I mean, adult onset diabetes in children. There's just no reason for that. Not in a country where we're so well educated and we have so much to offer. We think about college for our kids, but you can't enjoy any of that without health. So when we're dealing with toxins, this is how we deal with them. We bury them in body fat. We deposit them in tissues, and we remove them. But when we remove them, these are the organs that we're going to use. Now remember when I said we deposit them in body fat. That's the link between obesity and toxicity, remember? Because fat is the storage compartment for toxins. We store them in tissues. That, when you get to that point where you're past storing them in body fat and you're storing them in tissue, that's where people start to get symptomatic. Headaches that are unexplained and nothing can help, kidneys, the brain, the liver. That's where people start to have some issues. But this 21-day program is about supporting removing those toxins, and these are the organs. The #1 organ of detoxification is the liver. And when we're talking about the liver, this is oversimplified. This is a lot more complex than I can explain right now. But let's think of the liver as like a complex engine that needs 2 oil filters. Okay, the first oil filter, which we'll call phase 1, takes in most of the toxins, does kind of move some things around and makes it into a water-soluble form that you see there in bile and urine, and excretes it. Up to now, everything is good. We can deal with a certain amount of toxins. But when the toxic load gets to a certain point, now it has to also send over to phase 2, which you see the intermediary there is toxic byproduct. Here's a problem. That toxic byproduct is more toxic than the original toxin. It has to be. That's the way the body works. It converts it into a form so it can deal with it later. The problem with a lot of the purification or cleanses out there that you'll find is that they'll support a lot of phase 1, but in doing so they're creating more toxic byproduct. That is why any purification program, it's essential that you be under a doctor's care. It's very, very important. Because remember, you're reintroducing a lot of toxins into the body and you're trying to get them out safely. So it's, again, the value in this program is not just what's in the bag. The value is that it's a physician-supervised program. And from what I understand, this office is doing a weekly checkup, which is very, very important. I think it's a lot of times I see patients not succeed in this program, and it's basically, here you go, this is what you're going to do, and they never hear, they're done. There's follow through here, and I like that because there's going to be questions that come up while you're on the program. But this is kind of a little explanation as to why it's so important to stay in touch with a doctor while you're doing this, and not jump on any bandwagon you hear on an infomercial. Oh, this is a cleanse and this will do it in 3 days. Beware. You don't want to push your body into detoxification like that. It's not good. So this is our program. It's made up of some what we call shakes. I hate to call it shake because when I think of a shake, I think of a Dairy Queen Blizzard, from the old days for me. I don't do that anymore, but yeah, but it can be something that's really, really tasty. As a matter of fact, my daughter asks for it every day. When we've had play dates and her friends come over, Mr. Santos, can you make us one of your shakes? Like, I'm surprised, and guess what they're getting? I'll show you here. They're getting, this is the SP Complete, Brussels sprouts, kale. Who eats Brussels sprouts and kale in here? Oh, we got 5, that's good. Usually got 1 or 2 at most. But they don't count because they're staff. So,
they're family and they were force-fed.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's my parents. So
yeah. So you have to.
Yeah, I have to.
Let me tell you, this stuff is, the first time I went to Kroger and asked for kale, this was in 2000 and, I was just starting a diet for a bodybuilding show. I'm going to guess it was like 2002 or 3. The guy told me, that you don't eat that, that's a garnishment. And looking back, I'm like, the ignorance. Kale, I mean, it's such a great vegetable. I mean, I can't say enough about kale, but this I will say, ladies, they've actually done studies where women who consume kale and Brussels sprouts had a 300% less incidence of breast cancer in just 90 days. This information we've known for years, but again, modern medicine is more interested in detecting and treating than in preventing. There's no money in prevention. Unfortunately, that's not something that is funded in any way. So these kids that are coming over to my place and playing with my daughter are getting great nutrition. Kale, Brussels sprouts, buckwheat. Who eats buckwheat? I mean, without a lot of sugar in it. I mean, we've heard of buckwheat pancakes, but I mean, it's just loaded with sugar. I mean, real buckwheat. It's very high in protein, high in vitamin C, and the protein